Hey, if you want to learn how to make money for your nonprofit, go ahead and watch this video. But before we start, please give a like and subscribe to this channel. Next to that subscribe button, you're also going to see a little bell. Click on that and you'll be notified of every new video that we come out with. Okay, folks, we're going to talk with Alexandra Black Pollock about generating revenue for your nonprofit. She has a ton of great ideas. Enjoy. Hey folks, this is Steve with Nonprofit Ally, and we are doing a Zoom conference call on video, and I am talking with Alexandra Black Pollock. She is the Chief Marketing Strategist at Positive Impact Media. She's the host of Positive Impact Podcast. We got connected, kind of just connecting through Facebook and stuff, and today we're going to talk about she's actually launching a course, and she's the co-creator of the Nonprofits for the Future. It's a workshop teaching for nonprofits, and it's how to develop earned revenue streams. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So Alexandra, thanks for being on the program.
I am so excited to be here. This is going to be fun.
This is really cool. So for folks listening on the podcast, it's actually being videoed too. So you can also see this on YouTube because we are going to be going through a short slide deck that Alexandra has made. I'll do my best to kind of give you an idea of what you're looking at so you don't have to be watching the video, but I highly recommend going to YouTube and checking this out. All right, Alexandra, we have something called earned revenue streams. And let's first say that Alexandra is a marketing strategist, and this is what she does. And she's branching out in the new nonprofit world, and revenue streams is a big deal. And we're going to make this connection between earned revenue streams, marketing, the course, and all things included, right? But I think what we need is a definition. What is an earned revenue stream?
This is great. And this is actually something that I heard talked about on one of your podcast episodes recently, was this myth around whether or not nonprofits can actually develop revenue, AKA, can they make money? And what I love about this is most people think that they can't, but actually that's not how it is. They are allowed to make money. One of the classifications is whether or not it's related or unrelated income. And that all has to go back to the idea of, does it tie back towards your mission? Or does it have nothing to do with your mission whatsoever? Mm-hmm. And so one of the things that I've been working with organizations on recently is, how do you develop an earned revenue or earned income, which is basically how do you make money in your organization that ties back to your mission? Because as you know, nonprofits have limited resources, they have limited time and energy. What they're doing, and especially in the money side of things and making money, needs to move their mission forward and deepen their impact. So lots of different organizations are developing these different revenue streams, which is kind of a term for the for-profit world, but different ways that they're making money that once again move their mission forward.
Right. So let me ask, because it does seem counterintuitive. You're a nonprofit, which in people's minds means you don't make money, but if you have to make money because you have bills and you have staff and you have programs to fund. So how maybe we need a redefinition of nonprofit.
Well, I actually, again, on that myth episode that you had, there was a really great description where you're talking about like community impact centers, or maybe we should redefine it. So the term nonprofit actually has to define what you do with the profits. It's not necessarily that you can't make them. It's that the profits go back into the organization. They don't go out to shareholders. You don't have dividends. It's not traded on the open market and things like that, which is all different and complicated and fun stuff.
Right. But I think it confuses people, I think, because it was on that myth podcast, but we also talked about it once with Tom, who's the nonprofit lawyer. Someone had mentioned that they were making money, and are we allowed to make money? That kind of question. And we had to, again, address the idea that, of course, you can make money and you should charge for your services. It's a matter of how you then expend that money. That could get you in trouble if you didn't spend it in the right way. You could violate your nonprofit status by doing so.
Definitely. And one thing I actually encourage different organizations to do is, as they're developing different revenue streams or different ways that they make money, either through selling products or launching new lines or licensing technology, talk with your accountant and or possibly a nonprofit lawyer, and just make sure that you're in alignment. And you have that classification of related income versus unrelated income, because the IRS has different amounts or percentages of how much your revenue can come from that unrelated aspect.
Right. And that is definitely a possibility there, or an option to have other revenue coming in, but that percent is going to be important. Now you're talking about helping nonprofits generate an earned income, an earned revenue stream. Is there something we're missing, or is it just a matter of utilizing tools in a better way? What's your approach on that?
Really, it kind of goes back, and what we do in the course is focusing on the mission and looking at the organization through a little bit different lens. Every organization is different and they all have different opportunities presented. So one of that is going back to your core mission. And we walk you through several different exercises like, are there gaps in your organization? Are there other ways to achieve this? What are the actual metrics that you are focusing on? So sometimes we do that. The other thing that we do is we look at your assets of the organization and say, what do you have that provides value? One of the cool things of going through this course with an organization, with Rocky Mountain Wild, they actually discovered that they had a proprietary software that was super cool. They were able to measure the different animal migration patterns in geographical locations.
Mm-hmm.
And they're the only one who has this specific type of technology that it does this. So what we did is then we looked at that and said, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And this is super crucial to what you guys do, because they focus on land development and how it impacts animals. Let's look at other organizations who can then use that technology in a similar way, either from, looking at architecture firms or developers and say, can we give you, or can we license this and let you guys use it? And then you design better development that's, it won't impact the environment. Or possibly, can you license it to universities and then they can study that and incorporate it to their schools?
Mm-hmm.
Once again, it ties back to their mission, which is, they want development to be better for the environment. But at the same time, it's just realizing that asset that they had and applying it in different ways. So those are some of the different things that we do and kind of how to achieve this.
Right. So you almost like do an asset inventory of some
We
sense.
exactly do that.
Right. So how, because a lot of times, I just had this in another call with someone. It's kind of like seeing the forest through the trees. When you're working there, you really don't, sometimes you just don't see that. Do you run them through a process with that in order to discover those potential ways of taking an asset and kind of earning income off of it?
Definitely. So I love that analogy of you can't see the forest through the trees. And one of my biggest struggles when I actually worked in nonprofits is we were always moving on to the next thing. And we never had that opportunity to step back and look at the organization, kind of go, okay, so here's our organization. This is our mission. This is what we're focusing to, and then measuring the impact. So yeah, we've got several different worksheets. One is, as you said, an asset inventory. One is approaching, I don't know if we kind of call it a mission inventory, but we ask different questions about your mission and say, if you had a magic wand, how would you do this? Are there different gaps that you look at? What are other ways to achieve this? What could different results be, just to get that paradigm shift?
Mm-hmm.
Another one that I really like, and it's kind of a business tool, is the 5 whys exercise. So you kind of approach something and then it's, well, why is that? Well, why is that? So a lot of times you go to a problem or a challenge and you say, okay, here's my challenge. You say, well, why is that? And then you say, well, this is the thing. And by the time, I think actually Toyota created it, or it's often used in the example with Toyota, the company.
Right. I hear this sounds like familiar, but yeah, keep going on the analogy though.
So yeah, what Toyota did is they would have an issue with, the car would go through the processing line and they would pinpoint a problem and say, okay, well, why is this happening? And they would say, okay, well, this product isn't getting made right. They go, okay, well, why is that? Oh, because this isn't formatted properly. Okay, well, why is that? And so eventually by getting to that, they would get to what's called the root cause. And so sometimes by taking organizations through this and approaching it, because, it's not exactly a magic or the silver bullet, it's not a magic wand, but if we take them through that on different aspects of what they're working on, sometimes you realize that there's a different root cause for the problem that you're trying to solve. And then that in itself is an opportunity.
Right. It reminds me of almost like it's almost a 2-year-old in some sense. You want why, and then you give them the answer and they go why, and then you give them an answer. And then it actually makes you think deeper and deeper each time. Yes. on whatever the topic is that you're discussing.
Yes, they do it much better than we do.
Yeah, they do. Kids are fun. So you're discovering these earned revenue streams, like you can earn income off of these assets like that. At which point, how are you helping the nonprofit then reach? You have to market it. Like if I have something of value, right? And I'm like, oh, well, I didn't know that, but hey, now I have a product of some type or a service of some type that can go beyond what we're currently doing. How do you take that and then introduce it to something outside the organization?
Well, really, it's a full process. So first, you have to kind of do that asset inventory, coming with the idea, right? You have to come up with your solution. The next step is actually doing a market landscape. And so again, this is all very rooted in the business world, which is kind of fun to talk about it with different nonprofits. You got to see what your competitors are doing, what the market looks like. Are there already solutions in place? What are those different things that are out there? Could we improve on them? What are pricing? Pricing is a huge issue. And, all entrepreneurs, all organizations, all companies struggle with what is the right price point. So it's going through, how do you price it? Some of your buyer psychology, stuff like that. And just figuring out if there's opportunity. It's also understanding is like, okay, so I think people need this, but do people actually need it? So it's talking to your consumers, talking to your different organizations, which also reminds me, one great way to discover opportunity is actually talking to your constituents and seeing what opportunities or gaps they see as well. So once you have an idea, there's different ways you can beta test it. You can kind of talk to people and say, hey, I'm thinking about developing this. What do you think? So once you have that and you're ready to kind of take it to market, what we promote is your MVP, which is also your minimal viable product. Nonprofits don't have a lot of time or energy to develop a product that's not going to sell. So you get it to your, the most viable point. You kind of get it's like, okay, if I were just going to beta test this, or it was going to be, the best possible with the least amount of work, let's take that to market and see if it sells. And if people want it, then we'll keep on putting more energy and resources into it, which is where your marketing comes in.
Right.
A lot of your storytelling, it's so important to understand who your ideal customer is. What are their likes? What are their interests? What pain point are you actually focusing on? And what are you solving for them? And when you understand all of that, then you can talk to them and reach them on some of the different social channels. And they're going to resonate with your message because they're going to go, oh my gosh, you totally understand me. Let's see what you're talking about and then possibly buy.
I like that idea, the marketing approach that you had in there. I'm going to review that real quick, and I have a real quick follow-up question. So you talked about doing the asset inventory first and seeing what you have and what might be available, and then determining the marketing landscape. So who might this apply to, asking your constituents, figuring out what, if this solves someone's need, and at that point doing the MVP, which you call the minimal viable product. So get it out there, test it, and see how it does in the market. Let's talk a little bit about marketing before we focus back on the earned revenue part. When you go to market it, can you play the nonprofit card in the marketing? Like, well, we're a nonprofit, so you actually benefit our mission while also getting this great product. Is that a selling point?
Definitely. And whether or not you say, strictly we're a nonprofit, there's a whole different market segment, which is your social entrepreneurs, which is your missions that actually achieve purposes. And so they always connect their customers to their why. So first, you really do have to feature on or focus on the benefits of your product and how it's really going to serve the individual. That's going to be your primary focus. But while you're doing that, you do want to connect them back to the why and say, your purchase isn't just solving your problem. You're helping fuel this huge mission that we're working on. So it's kind of a two-part equation. You can't just have one without the other, because the good that you're doing is part of your unique selling proposition. But again, you can't sell a product just on the good you're doing. You also have to focus on the value of the product. Because if your product isn't doing its job or it's not very good, it's just not going to sell again.
Right. Yeah. And then exactly. So I like the idea though, connecting it to your why brings you kind of back to that. You can connect it to the nonprofit's mission in some sense for the folks. And the other thing was would a nonprofit with a product like this actually maybe have a little higher trust factor compared to a for-profit business going into it and trying to do the same thing?
I definitely think that can be a competitive advantage. But it does kind of depend on the messaging and what the product is. I think nonprofits have a huge advantage is because they're going to better understand the needs of the individuals that they're working to solve.
mm,
And bringing that out in how you talk about the product, that's going to give you a competitive advantage.
Okay, great. And one thing we are talking a bit business-like here, but I want people to know also that nonprofits are businesses. You're incorporated. The first thing you do to get your nonprofit is you incorporate. You are now in a business. You just happen to be a nonprofit business, but you are a corporation. You are a person too. Right. I didn't need to throw that in there, but why not? Okay, so let's go into this because I think to better understand this, we might go ahead. You have some slides ready. I think help us kind of see how this process works. She has a couple case studies. What we're going to do here, folks that are listening, we're going to put up a slide deck, and then Alexandra, what will happen throughout this, every so often I will interject and kind of give an idea of what we're looking at. But right now we're just looking at the title screen. And we are rolling. So go ahead and walk us through this example you have, this case study.
Perfect. So I actually have two case studies. And what I wanted to showcase is how many different opportunities organizations have to really generate revenue. And there's so many different ways that you can go about it. I think I've come up with about 7 or 8 and different ways they could look. So the first one that I'm going to talk about is called licensing your technology. And the example that I have is the Denver Food Rescue, and they have a program within their organization called the Fresh Food Connect. Oh man, that's a tongue twister. Anyways, Fresh Food Connect. So what I want to tie back everything to is the mission, because the mission is really important. And I truly believe that organizations should be developing revenue that moves their mission forward and is really deepening their impact. So the Denver Food Rescue, they work to decrease food waste and increase health equity in their communities. So the Fresh Food Connect program solves 2 issues. First, they take excess garden produce and then they address food insecurity. So the basics are volunteers pick up extra produce from gardeners and then they distribute that to food insecure communities, and they actually do it all via bike.
Oh, well, that's cool.
Yeah.
We're going to we may have a dog howling in the background here in a minute. Sorry for the interruption. This is always live.
I love my presentation so much that they're singing a chorus. So again, walking through this, then you have to look at the assets. What do you have? This organization, they have an app that connects the gardeners to the volunteers, and it's to the distribution sites, and it's really sleek. It's user friendly, makes moving produce around super simple, and then it also has the ability to kind of there's a term called white labeled. So Denver Food Rescue can sell this product to somebody else and they could put their logo on it. So doing that asset inventory, this is one of their key features.
Okay, so let me, I'm sorry about the howling dog, but the app, so they have an app that connects the gardeners to the volunteers. Did they actually develop that app, or is that something that's available? Anyone can get this app and kind of connect their organization with another?
They actually developed it. This is their intellectual property.
That's great. That's a great idea.
Yeah. So, they developed it to solve a specific problem that they had, but looking back, they realized that the value it had, which again, with the value creates the opportunity. So they saw that initially other organizations were coming to them and wanted to develop Fresh Food Connect hubs around the different states or different communities because they wanted to solve the same problem, which is gardeners have too much produce and other communities don't have enough. I don't know if there's any gardeners, but as a gardener, zucchini is one of the main things that grows like wildfire.
Mm-hmm.
And if you plant them, then you have 40 bazillion zucchinis, and there are just not enough dishes to make
right. And
out
so
of that many zucchinis.
What they're doing is basically they're taking the excess gardening from individual gardeners and they're bringing it into their own store. All this is done. The gardeners giving this for free, the volunteers picking it up for free. So right now there's no money exchange. There's no earned revenue at this point.
Correct. Although I do believe, and I think it varies throughout times, that they actually then sell the produce in the local communities or they have distribution sites.
Right.
To be fair, I'm not 100% positive because I think that varies throughout the year.
Well, there's another application here too, because the volunteers just made face-to-face contact with a potential supporter, donor, another volunteer, board member, whatever, right? So now your awareness is expanded, and they're going to share it with their friends at the dinner table.
Definitely.
Okay.
Definitely. That's huge.
Okay, so we're going on now. We're going into the earned income part of this.
Right. So again, realizing that the technology itself was really valuable, they decided that they were going to license out the app to the other Fresh Food Connect hubs. They charge a super nominal fee. I think in reality, it's maybe $25 a year. But if you have 10 hubs, all of a sudden you're covering all the maintenance costs for the apps. So this program that you created is now self-funding because the software is the most expensive piece.
Right, right. That's great. And so they made the app and then they distributed it.
Right. So then they just license it out. As I said, right now it's only for the other hubs. But one of the cool things that I think about this is it has a lot of potential because they're moving around different supplies.
Mm-hmm.
They're saying, this person has a lot of supplies, this area doesn't, and here's the individual who's going to move them. So one of the cool things is they have a lot of potential. Specifically, if they decided eventually to white label it, they could sell it to other nonprofits or organizations that are moving products, right? Because it's either products or it's produce. So you could do relief organizations,
Mm-hmm.
especially with the natural disasters that the U.S. has faced this year. There's a lot of potential there. Or they could find other different applications, again, using the software.
Right. So explain white labeling. It's a familiar term to marketers and sales. White labeling to the explain that one for us.
Perfect. So white label, especially with software, they've created this app. And right now, their logo's on the app. If you log into the app, it's going to have the Fresh Food Connect logo. But with the white labeling, it's where you take the product and you put somebody else's logo on it. So a lot of times restaurants will do this with a bottle of wine or maybe a pasta sauce. It's kind of a generic one that they bought, but they want to have their own line. And so they put their logo on the bottle of wine, on the pasta sauce, or on the app. And they're like, oh, now we have our own pasta sauce. We have our own app.
Gotcha. It's
So
like,
to the consumer, they associate that with the organization, whereas technically somebody else created it. And what they're just doing is they're licensing it, which means they're paying to use it.
Right. It's like you've bought the branding rights and then you can use it and say it's yours.
That's a perfect way to do it, is the branding rights. That's basically
cool.
what you're buying.
Alrighty. Is there another slide here or do you have the other case study starting before we?
All right. So then the next one's the next case study.
Okay, cool. Let's change back to I don't know who has control of the screen anymore. I'm going to stop the screen share. Okay, wait, there we go. Perfect. You did it. You know the software better than I do.
Learning.
All right, cool. Now, so when you guys did the asset evaluation with the Denver Food, that organization, how did you come to this revelation? Like, oh, look at this. We have this opportunity.
Well, thanks for giving me credit. I actually did not do this with that organization. Okay. So this is kind of more a biopsy of what they did do.
Okay.
I connected with the founder though. And so he's a very entrepreneurial individual. He is in fact probably one of the most entrepreneurial individuals I've ever met running a nonprofit. Mm-hmm. And he approaches everything that he does through an entrepreneurial lens. In fact, I could probably spend a whole episode just on what Denver Food Rescue is doing and some of the innovative approaches that they're deploying.
Oh, great. Yeah, I could imagine just like trying to figure out, like technology is a great asset for anybody and it's a pretty easy entry into there. So developing an app or developing a way to connect to the community through phones can increase the mission, right? Well, cool. So they developed the revenue stream basically off the app, and that app could be white labeled and passed around to, well, gosh, that could be, like you said, it could be used for natural disasters and all sorts of stuff. So that's a really provocative and yet great way to spread your mission. They could also take that and actually repackage the program.
Definitely. I mean, there's so many different things you can do with technology. I do know that their main focus right now is just the Fresh Food Connect and having the different hubs. And so eventually, if they get enough hubs, which again is spreading your mission, you're helping organizations with surplus of food move food to areas that don't have fresh produce. And again, they're actually creating revenue off of it. So it has the potential to bring in extra revenue through their organization.
Right. Now I just made a classic mistake though. I thought of more things to do, and I'm trying to grow it beyond, possibly beyond the mission, but maybe beyond their capacity. So do you see things like that? Well, that's a great idea. What if we do this? And then you're like, whoa, this is getting bigger, right? And possibly within your mission, but like, do you have to kind of pull the reins?
Guilty as charged.
Yeah.
So half the time I do that too, which is why it's really important to really put that mission front and center and say, is this moving our mission front and center? Is this deepening our impact? How is this serving our community? And Denver Food Rescue does a great job of that, which is why they may or may not really expand it out to other organizations. But yeah, that's definitely a push and a pull. The other one is really evaluating, it's like, how many resources is this going to take to launch versus is that taking away from our organization and our key deliverables? So it's definitely a balance. And I truly believe that by putting that mission just front and center and tying everything back to that, you can kind of help curb some of that.
Okay. Hey, let's go right into, these are great examples. This is making it all a lot clearer. So let's go ahead and move on to the other case study.
Awesome. I'm just going to pull it up. Okay. So the next one, and this is probably one of the easiest opportunities, or it's the lowest barrier to entry. It's selling products and offering services, which is probably some of the basic stuff on how business started. So doing yet another Denver related example, hometown bias, I'm going to talk about Bikes Together. So again, keeping that mission front and center. Their entire mission is to get people on bikes and keep them there. So they're promoting active and healthy living by increasing access to bicycles and promoting safe bike-friendly environments. So through getting people on bikes and keeping them there, you're talking about transportation issues and health issues all just in one fell swoop.
And environmental, if you want to go that route.
And environmental, totally. They don't have that anywhere on their website, but one of my favorite ones about biking is like, oh, yay for the environment.
Yeah, no carbon emission coming out of this. So.
Exactly. And I call it wasteline fuel, which I like to burn a lot because there's plenty of it.
Right.
So doing that asset inventory, they have a fully equipped bicycle workshop that has used bike parts. And they have a huge community of engaged volunteers with the know-how to work on bicycles. One of the other things is there's tons of used bikes. I mean, people destroy them or they get old and just nobody knows what to do with them. So there they kind of sit, right? So their opportunity was, and they did several, people are always looking for affordable bicycles. I don't know if anyone's been bicycle shopping lately, but especially some of these new high-end models, they are expensive. Every time my husband and I go into a bike shop, somehow he just magically wanders over to the $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 bikes. I'm like, we're going to move back over to reality, and it doesn't have so many zeros on it. Yeah. So people need bicycles. Additionally, once you have a bike, you have to keep it maintained. And then, as I mentioned, there's an endless cycle of older bikes that are kind of worthless, and nobody knows how to fix them. Well, people do, but not as many.
And so we're talking about an influx of just used bikes and parts and things like that, combined with the fact that bikes can be expensive. Like a good bike, this is just my opinion, a good bike, solid bike is $500. Like that's just, so it doesn't break in a year. So yeah, they are expensive to get into. Okay. So now we've identified some assets, which is the parts, the used bikes, and a need, right? For something that's more affordable.
And a huge need. So yeah, the earned income model addresses all of that. First, they started selling these refurbished bikes. As you mentioned, a good bike's really expensive. So my husband and I went bike shopping for me this summer, and somehow we came away with a bike for him. I still have yet to understand how that happened, but there we were. He got a carbon fiber, beautiful road bike, which probably retails at, probably a minimum of $1,500. Carbon infused road. Anyways, we bought that bike for $500, which is a third of the price. That's actually the high end of the types of the bikes that they offer. A lot of them are between $75 to $200. And again, these are actually, for what you're getting, they're high caliber bikes. They may or may not be name brand, but they're gonna work. So additionally, once you have a bike, you need to maintain it. So here they have two different options. You can actually drop off your bike at the store and they will do a tune-up. And again, kind of going that affordability point, focusing on who they serve, their bike tune-ups are maybe $75, where a lot of the shops around town are about $150. And actually, theirs gets done way faster. I was at one of the bike shops and it was going to be 2 or 3 weeks to get my bike tuned up, and just not having my bike that long was going to be a huge pain. So then additionally, they also sell different bike parts, both new and used, in the workshop. So when you come in, even if you just want to tune up your own bike, which they'll teach you how to do, that's part of their organization model. They have volunteers that'll walk you through everything. You can actually buy different parts. So the bike I ended up getting, I bought the bike frame and it needed a ton of work. So we went in there and I think we maybe spent $50 or $60 on different bike parts, which included new tubes, new tires, but a whole bunch of little parts that just were missing on my bike, like some of the brake components and things like that. The last thing that they did that I think is really cool is they created value. So they've got this workshop, and part of their mission, it's important to have that workshop free. But what they did is they made it exclusive for members on Sundays. And I was actually just on their website, and it turns out it's Sundays and Thursdays. So it's a great value add that promotes their membership, but doesn't cost them a dime because they already have it in place.
Right, right. And it's a perk that you get as a member that you get this added benefit.
Exactly. And I think there were some other perks. I didn't really know because we wanted to work on a Sunday, and Sunday was a members only day. So we purchased a membership.
Mm-hmm. Now, how are they getting these parts? Is it just through volunteers? Do they advertise out there for people to bring it in?
That's a great question. I'm not exactly sure. I just know that behind the workshop, because we've gone and worked there quite a bit, they have a huge graveyard of decrepit bikes that kind of get salvaged for parts, and then they refurbish some of them. They might work with other organizations to help do that as well.
Yeah, there has to be a way to get it there. Obviously, they're getting them. Yeah, that's cool. Okay, so they're earning the income through, where's that revenue stream coming from exactly then?
So they sell bikes. They offer tune-ups. They also sell bike parts, and then in the kind of space, they also sell new items. So you can buy a helmet, you can buy a lock that has a very small markup, and then they also sell memberships.
All right. Okay, good. Is that the last slide on there? There we go. We're moving on.
All right. So then the last one is again the potential, and whether or not it makes sense for the organization has to be kept in mind. But I love to point out the potential of growth. So currently in Denver, Colorado, they have 2 different workshops that are in different communities. And this is where anyone can go in to maintain their bikes, to work on them. And they also have different programs that they give away bikes. So they want to be close to their community. Denver, I don't know if anyone's heard, but it has just grown dramatically here. And public transportation is really struggling to keep up. So over time, they really have the opportunity to continue to expand to different communities and having this same model, but just better access to different communities.
All right. All right. Well, cool. Go ahead and swap that screen back. So it's, we're going to get into, let's see here. Let me get my speaker view back. Cool. So for the folks that are just listening, the slides were, it was a slide deck, and what we talked about was on the slide. So you weren't really missing a whole bunch, except the slides are really cool and easy to follow what she was saying as they were there. But you did a great job of explaining what they were looking at, so I didn't have to say anything.
Well, thank you.
All right. All right, cool. So those are good examples. Now, so let's talk about like your structure of how you take people through this. And we talked about, your first is doing that asset inventory. Is there a specific focus on products versus service? Because a nonprofit could be a product like, we make this and we make it easier for you. All you do is you buy it. Like I'm thinking of some national or actually worldwide things where they have solar powered light bulbs that charge during the day and come into the non-wired off-grid house at night, right? Things like that, which is a product, but you also have services, right? The example you just gave actually is a little bit of both. They're providing a service, but they're also providing a product. So do you have examples on that, or how to help nonprofits determine if one or the other is a better revenue stream?
So I'm actually going to flip that model and say all goes back to your asset inventory, really looking at what you have of value, because that's going to help lead you in a right direction. For example, one of the organizations that went through the workshop, they worked on a equestrian farm. So they had different horses. So they have a huge physical space that they have. And part of their mission is, and I love this mission, it's to help people forget about cancer. And so
Mm.
they bring individuals out to the space and they get to interact with horses and help forget about cancer. So, kind of looking through that, one of their biggest assets is the physical space and the access to some of these different animals. Lo and behold, there were some challenges because they actually, the land was kind of gifted and a donor lets them use it. So when we were kind of going back to this of both helping people forget about cancer and then keeping in mind that this is their biggest asset, one of the things we talked about is holding kind of yoga or meditative retreats. And one of the things that we focused on that is a little bit of a gap of their service is the providers themselves who help individuals with cancer. That's a very taxing job.
Right.
And so, one of the things that we discussed, and kind of one of the ideas of many that we came up with, is hosting retreats for some of those practitioners to help them kind of diffuse, talk about their program. And they're also developing curriculum kind of to help with stress and things like that. So, again, they're helping people forget about cancer. They're also taking some of these meditative and relaxing techniques they're giving them to the practitioners, and then the practitioners can teach them to the participants of the programs. And additionally, those practitioners can help spread the word about the services that they offer for the families suffering from cancer.
Right. Yeah.
So it's kind of reversed, right? You start with the assets and your mission and then work backwards.
Yeah, and that kind of comes full circle too, because then you in some ways your mission, that's definitely mission related, and obviously the providers and the caretakers are part of that, as well as taking full use of what you have to offer. So you're actually just doing more in that case.
Exactly. And then when you look at an organization, they're going to build their assets where their values are, right? Because the assets are going to help them achieve their mission. So in theory, not always, but in theory, those values and those assets are actually intrinsically tied to their mission. So if we can kind of focus on those first and figure out either different applications or different ways to look at them, that's going to bring you closer to keeping your revenue stream aligned with your mission.
That's great. So so there's something we've withheld from the listening audience or the viewing audience, is that there's a perk to even those who are listening to this podcast right now, is that we have an available download that's going to help people through this, help guide them through this. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is? And then folks, all of this is in the show notes. It's all on the podcast page. So it's all going to be there in one place. You can find it all there. But tell us about this download that we have.
Awesome. So what I've got for you guys is 3 different case studies of organizations, nonprofits that have a revenue stream. So what I love about this is we could talk about philosophy and different approaches, but what I love is to see it in action. Because when I look at a case study, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is how they did it. Here's how it can apply to my life. So what I've put together for you is 3 different case studies. One of them is Bikes Together. So 2 others are going to be completely new, of an organization that, and going through the same steps that we did, what their missions are, what the different assets that they have, and then their earned income revenue. And we really focus on tying it back into that mission. Because again, I want you developing revenue streams that move your mission forward.
Right. And I should say, for those of you who aren't watching this on video, is that the slide deck that we did see, it was in some sense an outline, a step-by-step, like they went from their mission, they went to what they identified, and they went to what the revenue was, and then they went to what the potential was. So each one of those went through that. And so it kind of walks you through what you might be doing with your own nonprofit.
Really, and it's designed with that to kind of take it step by step. So starting with that asset inventory, looking at different opportunities, and then developing your revenue.
Boy, if you download, well, go and download this, but if you download it and use it, I would love to hear what you come up with. In fact, this can segue right into something else, is because you have a course coming out that you're releasing, and it's actually it's a short window that it's open for people. And we're going to try to time this podcast exactly on time so that people have enough time to get in on there. But also tell us about that, because and then we'll go into another offer for folks.
Awesome. Yeah. So it's Nonprofits for the Future, the roadmap to spark new revenue sources. So everything that we've talked about here in huge, robust steps. So first, exploring all the different types of business models out there that nonprofits are doing. So we talked about selling products and offering services. We talked about licensing technology. I believe, if memory serves, there's actually 7 or 8 different ways that organizations are already deploying this. So that's going to be kind of your module 1, going into all of those different ones. Then a lot of those worksheets and kind of those mindset shifts on, how do you look at the opportunities in your organizations? How do you do those assets? Evaluating your mission and approaching it through a different lens. So the next module is all about discovering your different opportunities. That's opportunities, that's weaknesses, that's strengths, and that root cause analogy that we talked about, the 5 whys exercise, we walk you through it there. And then, because once you have the idea, you need to figure out if it's viable, because not all ideas are good. I think I heard a quote once that was, we make money off of 1% of my ideas and we survive the other 99%. So exactly. And I think that was Dave Ramsey, to credit the author. So not all ideas are good. But the reality is nonprofits don't have a lot of time to market test really bad ideas. So that's why we're going to teach you about your market landscaping, your pricing, your buying psychology, your competitor research, some of those basic foundations that if you're willing to put the time in there, you can help weed out some of those really bad ideas. And then lastly, as we focused on earlier, mission-driven marketing. How do you connect your customers to your why? How do you showcase the benefits? With so many different marketing channels, how are you going to figure out the ones that are best for you? And then once you get on them, what are you going to say? So highlighting storytelling, how to talk about your benefits and different things like that. So that is all inside of this 4-week course. Modules are going to drop per week. And then we've got some boot camp style office hours that are going to make you really focus on this. And additionally, what we really want to do is we want to make sure you have ideas. So we're going to hop in there and actually help you approach your organization through different lens and then offer our ideas and our suggestions as well.
Yeah. So it sounds like this isn't a static kind of self-paced. This is interactive and engaging on a timeline, right? So this is being delivered in a 4-week period.
Exactly. We want to go to idea to implementation. And my co-host and I, we love, and where we really, our strengths are in strategy and ideation. And so by going through this, and we're going to present the content, just like we said, we're going to work with you each step of the way to make sure you're hitting those milestones. And again, we really want you to come out with some viable ideas for your organization. And if you're not, we've actually got some different measures in there for us to work a little bit smaller group setting to help you come up with ideas.
Okay. Well, that sounds great. That's good. It's exciting. The courses are a big, they're a big deal because one, you got your own time investment and like making sure that material is there, but then you're delivering this. There's no other, I don't know of anyone doing a course like this. But just undertaking the course and then having that investment in your time and your knowledge that goes into there. And then, it's a good benefit for people to come and try this. So this is what I want. This is what we're going to do because Alexandra was nice enough to offer an opportunity for one person to get a free course on this. Is that right? I hope I'm speaking.
Woohoo! Yeah, no, we're going to give away a free one.
I don't want to give away a course and not and then you'd be like, yeah, that wasn't the deal there. But
nope, that's totally what we're doing.
So it's we don't really have a random way of doing this except for like we've done in the past. We've given away books before on this podcast and other things, other opt-ins like that. And so basically what we're going to do is during this time, because your course, you have a window, so you open and then you close. Correct. And when you open, folks, again, I realize I'm kind of talking vaguely about this, but there's all in the show notes. So another reason to go to the page, get these links, because you're going to have a couple webinars, which will probably explain even more about your process in this course, and which I'm sure will be informative. As well. So if people go to the show notes for this page, for this podcast, leave a comment. And what I would like you to do, you could just leave a comment and say, hi, I thought this was great, but I would be really interested in anyone who downloads the PDF, hearing about their ideas for how they're going to generate revenue. Just put that in there. Myself or Alexandra will be sure to reply. But even if you just like, hey, good podcast, that counts. We're going to enter you in for, an opportunity to get this course for free.
Definitely. And yeah, with those comments, I mean, this is your opportunity to kind of pick our brains as well. Obviously, both of us can help you come up with ideas because, as we pointed out through this, we have a lot of them. But yeah, let me know with the case studies. If you have different struggles in your organization, a lot of nonprofits have also thought about implementing this, but don't know where to get started. So if you have questions, comments, concerns, just take over the comment sections in the show notes.
Yeah, that's great. The comments are. It seems like we're getting more and more comments each show, and I love interactive. This is a great topic, so feel free, folks, to bounce your ideas on what you think might be great for your nonprofit. We'd love to, and add links to your website so we can go check it out and see your mission. So Alexandra, before we wrap up, how does someone get a hold of you? Again, the links are in the show notes, but tell people how they can do this.
Wonderful. So if you're looking for more information on this course, it's nonprofitsforthefuture.com. For me personally, and a little bit about what I do, as Steve mentioned, I'm all about your marketing and strategy, focusing on moving your mission forward. I'm at positiveimpact-media.com, and on all the social channels. Instagram's my favorite right now. I am just so close to 1,500 followers, and that's at Positive Impact Podcast on Instagram. You should follow me there so I can break the 1,500 follower barrier.
That's great. That is one that I am not on. I am not on on Instagram that much at all. But great, let's get her over 1,500. So
woohoo!
That'd be fun. All right, folks. So now we know how to contact you. Thanks again. This was a very informative, and as people can probably tell, when it comes to generating ideas and doing marketing, obviously you excel at this, and we sidetracked a couple times. So I apologize to folks that were like, "Well, they could do this and they could do that." That's kind of the fun creative process, but the implementation and the actually putting the programs in place and all that boots and ground stuff, I think is about to come. Go to these webinars and check out the course, folks. Alexandra, thanks again. It was a great conversation.
Thank you so much. I had a ton of fun.
Okay, folks, thanks for watching that webcast. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel down there below. There's some videos right over there you can watch. There's other webcasts and other recent videos that we just posted. Be sure to subscribe to this channel. Give us a like. Thanks, folks.